Live from New York, it's Ask an Engineer.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Ask Engineer. It's me, Ladyada, the engineer. With me, Mr. Ladyada on camera control, video control, all the control. We've got an exciting show for you tonight. A lot of new products, videos. It's not out yet. Uh, Python on hardware, INPI, and
Cool
more.
top secret.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's a jam-packed show.
Jam-packed. So let's get right into it. Mr. Ladyada, please tell them what is the code and what's on tonight's show.
On tonight's show, the code is 2BFFs. This will make a lot of sense very soon because we have a lot of BFFs here. Talk about some of our live shows, including Show and Tell. We just did that a few moments ago. A bit of recap from Desk of Ladyada, including the Great Search. We got a highlight from JP's Product Pick of the Week. Doing some time travel. We got some Adafruit New York City factory footage made right here in New York City. Advanced manufacturer. 3D printing on an MPI. Super fun, top secret. We're going to do some new products. We're going to answer your questions. We're going to do that over on Discord. Adafruit.it/Discord. Discord.gg/Adafruit. Either one of those get you Discord. That's where we do all the questions. We have lots of chats going on in different places, so this is the one place to ask your questions. All that and more on, you guessed it, Ask an Engineer. Okay, let's dive right in. So, Ladyada, we have a discount code. It's 2BFFs. In addition to that, we have free things that people can get. Oh, yeah, I'm in a little video. So we get free stuff. Burp, burp, beep, beep, free,
Beep, beep.
beep, free delivery.
Free.
What did they get at the first tier?
I'm glad you asked. Check your video. $99 or more, you get a free Perma Proto half-size breadboard. These handy PCBs can be soldered to for your projects. Once you've gotten them working on a solderless breadboard, you can make them solderful. At $149 or more, you get a pink KB2040. This is an all-in-one microcontroller board that has an RP2040 chip, 8 megs of flash, USB-C, castellated pads, 2 buttons, STEM QT. It's Pro Micro Pinout compatible, but you can use it for any kind of projects, and it works great with Arduino, CircuitPython, or MicroPython. $199 or more, you get free UPS ground shipping in the continental United States. You do not get this little truck. It's our truck. We only have one.
Yeah. We had to spend a lot with UPS to get that.
Yeah. And at $299 or more, you get a microbit.
That's right.
These are back in stock and want to celebrate. Get some microbits out to people. This is the V2. It's a Bluetooth low energy board with LEDs, and there's tons and tons of tutorials online. It's designed for students, but that makes it really also great for beginners and makers.
Okay, so not only use a discount code, but load up your cart and get something for free. We do a bunch of live shows every single week. We just did one of our live shows. Thank you, knowing Pedro, who hosted the show and tell. Next week we're on. And come by 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. You can get the join link, show any of your projects, retro hardware. Lots of folks are making cool things from keyboards to stuff that goes into space. Who knows what you'll see on the show and tell. I'm not picking favorites. However, I do have the video version of what Trevor showed from the show and tell. It's a really cool boxing project.
Yes.
So I'm going to play that when we do our Learn Guide stuff. So you'll see that on our show. But if you want to watch the entire show and tell that has a bunch of cool stuff, it's in all of our video places: Twitch, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter. It's everywhere. So check it out. On Sundays, we do From the Desk of Ladyada. Ladyada, we do it in two parts. You show what you're working on, and then we do the Great Search. What were you working on over the weekend?
This weekend, I was working on the tester for the new NXP IMX RT M7 Metro that I've been kind of working on for like a couple of years now, but I couldn't release because of the chip shortage. I can get these chips again now. So I'm going to release this board. So I had to make the programmer for it. The programmer uses a Raspberry Pi to connect to the ROM bootloader and upload to it with the NXP SD Prog tool. And then you load our secondary bootloader, the Teeny USB-based Teeny UF2 bootloader. And then I upload some NXP Espresso SDK code that I wrote to test all the GPIO and the NeoPixel.
Okay, and then use your power of engineering and search to find stuff on digikey.com. And stuff is coming back in stock. The chip shortage isn't over, but it's pretty close. What did you look for this week?
This week on the chip shortage, chip shortage.
It used to be called a chip
It
shortage.
could be too short. Sorry, I'm had a
We
look.
had we had that segment, and we had a really nice song at the time. We tried to make light of a really tough
It
situation,
was tough.
but now
Now it's
things
like the chip surplus.
now there's a chip surplus.
Sorry, on the Great Search, because there was a chip shortage, I couldn't get the IMX RT chips. I can get them now. I went through and I showed a couple different ones, the physical shape and size of them. I had them on the overhead, so you could see how big the BGAs were versus the TQFPs. And I compared and contrasted the different models available because there's like the 1010 up to the 1060 series. Each one of them is a little different, and also showed off the EVKs that you can purchase to get started.
So check it out. We're live every Sunday, Hacker Time. It's when we have stuff going on at night on Sunday. Let's see, Sunday. I know it's the Superb Owl event. We're probably going to go to a parade in Chinatown, but we'll be back in the evening and we'll have some fun stuff to show and share. So join us Sunday nights. JP's product pick of the week. It's every Tuesday, and it's an automatic discount, and we broadcast live from the product page. Here is this week's highlight.
The Mini Boost 5-volt at 1 amp. Let's see here, I've got a 2 AA battery pack. And right here I have a Metro Mini. So any of your AVR boards, if you're trying to run Arduino Uno or this little Metro Mini, those really want 5 to 9 to 12 volts in. I've got my Mini Boost, and it is receiving this roughly 3 volts from the battery. So that's on its in. And then on its 5-volt out, I'm driving the Metro Mini there. And then I have a NeoPixel ring here. This is plugged into 5 volts on the Metro Mini as well, and it's getting data over I/O pin. So this is great. You've also got the enable pin on there, so if you want to use a power switch, an on-off switch, if I flip this on, you'll see I've got my LED ring there with the full 5 volts that it wants, boosted up from the 3 that it was initially going to give us off of that battery. The Mini Boost 5-volt 1 amp.
Check out JP's workshop on Thursdays, and then Friday we have deep dives with Tim. Time travel, a couple little bits of news in the Makerverse that I wanted to talk about. Every single week we go over some events or something going on with Adafruit or things in the community. We try to be a good news source and pick out things that we like. So we're not going to be traveling internationally anytime soon because we have a baby. But Saturday, March 25th, 2023 in Berlin, Hackaday Berlin's back. And I'm the founder of Hackaday, but I have nothing to do with Hackaday right now. I'm just a fan. And this looks like a fantastic event. Post art's really good. So if you're thinking of going somewhere, or if you're in the area, check it out. You can go to hackaday.com. It'll probably be a fantastic event and hang out with fellow hackers and more. One thing that we're working on, and we'll do a little bit of an update, is My Little Hacker. So, My Little Hacker is our video series that we're doing where at night we go take our child's toy and take it apart and try to make it better and more interesting and hackable and moddable, and we're publishing all of it. So we have some updates that we'll be doing. What's your next step?
The next step is so I've actually had Jepler is Adafruit a contractor helping out with stuff. And what Jepler's doing is testing out the ESP32S2 CircuitPython wave playback with I2S to make sure it works. Because before I designed the hardware using this chip, I want to make sure it works. And I was like, I didn't want to try, there's so many different combinations of waves and playbacks and MP3s. And so asked Jepler to check it out. And so far the S2 is can play waves just fine through I2S and from an SD card, which means that the component picks are good. I can start laying out the circuit board. So you gave me a scan of the enclosure. Last week I actually got like totally into just, I wanted to release this M7 Metro because Sex is great, but releasing hardware that's like 3 years pending is even better. So I'd like to get that done. And then I can get back to new stuff. I don't want to get too distracted with new stuff when I have this old stuff to finish.
And so for my part, I want to document this and kind of talk about some of the things that went into it. And we talked to a lot of parents, and they're like, "Yeah, I would love to change the songs on this toy. I'd love to be able to have a volume indicator. I'd like to have it do all sorts of things." So I also have that sound bug of like My Little Pony in my head forever. So now we have an intro song, so I'm gonna play it.
My little hacker, building with you is magical. My little hacker, it's time to build and share.
All right. A little bit of a reminder, and didn't think we were going to have to do it this soon, but Twitter's collapsing, so we're on Mastodon. You can just search for Adafruit. Let me just talk about some of the changes that Adafruit is making for some of our social media stuff. Not really changes, but like we'll put it on our editorial statement, and we'll also do a blog post. So we've been kind of getting away from having our blog posts automatically tweet. There's a thing called API access, and you can have Twitter do all sorts of neat things, but kind of that's going away. Twitter's under some new management. So our blog isn't going to auto tweet anymore. We've been doing more human curation anyways, and sometimes we don't let anyone in the world comment. And one of the reasons is sometimes we have social justice causes that we want to bring attention to, or we'll have like Black History Month, or we'll have women in STEM. And there's some folks that celebrate these things, and then some folks, it brings out the worst in them, and they decide that's their opportunity to be mean. Sometimes they go after our staff. They've done all sorts of crazy stuff. And one of the things that we can do is just limit that. And so we try to make sure that if something is going on Twitter, we're obviously aware that some things are polarizing. So if you ever say like, hey, here's like a sensor that studies heat, this is kind of interesting for possible climate change logging and stuff like that really sets off some folks. So we try to like make sure that we're aware of what's on certain social media platforms. So as of, I think it was going to be the 9th and now it's the 13th, Twitter's changing how they're doing stuff, and we're not going to pay Twitter so we can auto tweet to our from our blog. So right now, if you see tweets on there, it'll be from myself, more that we have a little notice on our profile. And then we also will have who from the Adafruit team is running the account. We'll probably have some guest editors and stuff like that. So more human curation, more cool content. Also, like the way thumbnails render when you link, sometimes it's not that great. So I'm looking forward to being able to really utilize some of the platforms and make them work really well for what they are. And we'll also probably try to stay away from topics that people just, it just brings out the worst in people. So why do it? The other thing that we're going to do, and this is kind of related, is we don't use things like ChatGPT to like make articles for us. And we don't do anything like that. I've been accused of being an AI because sometimes I answer email really fast, and they're like, "There's no way this is a person." I'm just like, "No, I just answered the email pretty fast." So I'm going to also put that in our editorial guidelines that says like if we ever were to use the tools, we would say we use the following AI tool for this. Here's a link to it, and here's a link to their policy that they have for misinformation and what the data is trained on. Everyone's trying to figure this out, but I just want to be super clear, like we don't use those tools, but if we did, we would say it and we would link to it. So we're just going to try to be a good editorial citizen. It doesn't matter, though. I mean, there's going to be some people that are just like mean. We have a thing that says we don't use Uline shipping. People are like, oh, I know you do. We don't do NFTs. I know you do. So no matter what, there's going to be some people that aren't happy and they just want to be mean, but we can have something for the folks out there who care about these things. Take a look at our privacy policy, for example. We have, I think we're one of the few sites that supports do not track and a lot of other things. And we frequently update that because we want to make sure your information's safe, secure, private. And if we don't need to share anything with any of these web tracking services or whatever, we don't. So anyways, so that'll be some of the things that you see that change. So follow us on Mastodon. Everyone's being nice over there for now. We'll see how long that lasts. It's Python and hardware time. Okay, this week, Ladyada, I got a couple things.
Yep.
So CircuitPython 8 is released.
Yep.
What should people know or do about CircuitPython? What's the big thing if they want to?
The big push is
to it?
expressive support and PicoW. It's now released. It's pretty stable. Tell us if there's any bugs you find. It does resize partitions for some things. So if you've been using earlier release candidates or betas, check the notes as a warning. It tells you, hey, if you're using these boards, we resize the partitions. A lot of it is because we added so much stuff that we had to make more space for firmware. So just make a backup of the code that you have running on your CircuitPython device. If so, not a big deal, but it's ready for people to try out. We tend to do an 801 pretty quickly, because when we do a release candidate,
Something comes up.
people use them, but then when you actually release, that's when people start using them it's the default. And so we're going to get a lot more bug reports. And so we'll fix those. And you'll see like an 801, 802 come out pretty quickly. But that said, please do update your boards. I've been using 8. It's been great. And we're on our way to 9, which will have some stuff like maybe USB host, maybe high speed chips, maybe more native display support. We'll see what's up.
Yeah, we were talking about like how do we do things like non-net connected machine learning, as the chips get more powerful. So we have lots of roadmap plans, but everything's out in the open. You can actually even check out our CircuitPython 2023 summary post for some of the stuff that we want to do. I'm still looking forward to like having lots of video things.
Yes.
That's one of the things. Yeah, like art on screens. So the next thing, of course, check out the newsletter. It's adafruitdaily.com. It's a completely separate site. We do not harvest your emails, view anything. That's why we made a separate site. We did not want it connected to your store experience in any way. But what I wanted to do this week was we get asked all the time, why does an Adafruit have a board comparison guide with all your stuff? And the thing is, there's so many people that's what they're doing. They're making comparison guides, like Make does it. And then this one came out. This is from eitherway.io. And this is one of the ones that we got asked to do, and it's just like, I'm just going to point people there. So it's the ESP32 Buyer's Guide, different chips, firmware, sensors. And there's a couple of things that, you get asked this a lot. So I figured like this could be like one, which are the best ones to run something like CircuitPython or MicroPython. But what are the things to look out for with like the differences with ESP8266, ESP32, ESP S3? Like it gets confusing, especially with some of the names of these. So you saw this chart. What'd you think of it?
Well, I think it's a good overview. I think that there's a couple of assumptions that they're making, which is that you're not necessarily using it with Python, and also they looked at technical specs and not necessarily what the SDK support is for them. So, for example, they're like, "Oh, we recommend the C3." It's like, well, the C3 is really cheap, but it also doesn't have as much support, and also doesn't have native USB. So they're like, just go straight to the S3. But we've seen some more bugs with the S3 that are still being worked out because it's quite new. I still really like the S2. I think it's really good. The USB 8266, definitely don't use it anymore. Like really, it's not a good idea. If you absolutely need something that cheap, the C3 is a good alternative. But other than that, I'd say the ESP32 Classic is still, very popular, a lot of code support for it. After that, the S2 is very good. S3 is kind of new, but I feel like it's getting more and more stable. And then the C3, which is really bare bones. So, they didn't, it's not they didn't pick these, but I have slightly different reasons. For me, it's not just hardware price. It's, am I seeing a stable IDF experience with it?
Yeah. So if, because it is confusing, and I think a lot of folks are still, when they hear ESP, they're thinking of like the 8260, like the first round that came out.
Yeah, don't use the 8266. That's basically the best suggestion that they had.
Yeah. So if someone right now, by the way, they have a neat comparison table. Let me go to this. So it's on GitHub. So this just means like, I actually like that they did this because other people can contribute to it and other folks have forked it. And then you can see the revisions. We do this with some of our stuff, like our, we did a CircuitPython, MicroPython thing on GitHub. We also did we have our awesome Feather. And we have a few other things. We have awesome CircuitPython. But I like this because this is going to change over time. But if someone was like, okay, I just want to have something that kind of does everything. I plug it in USB, it works. I can run CircuitPython on it. I can do, I can get started really fast, but then I can do some stuff. Which board do you think is a good?
I think the S2 is a good one. I think the S2, I really feel like they're very stable. If you're absolutely beginner, the ESP32, the original, has just the most broadband support, but for the good experience, I think the ESP32 S2, like I mentioned, is the best.
All right.
Family.
And I really appreciate they chose some of our boards for this.
Yeah.
The QT Py ESP32C3 Wi-Fi dev board and the Adafruit ESP32S3 Feather. Check it out.
Yep.
Good guide for folks who want to choose. The other thing that's kind of nice is like if we did a guide, we would probably like, well, here's our board. It's really hard to keep track of everyone else's. So I like it when someone else out
It's
there.
just independent third party. Like we
Yeah.
didn't pay them, we didn't send them anything. They just they just kind
Yeah.
of get
And like if we did a guide of just like which board to pick, I think it would be suspect. Like, well, we think our boards are really good. We're like, well,
Yeah.
of course you do. You're in for it. So, anyways, so do check that out. And I think if you want to run Python on hardware, this is a good place to start. And that is this week's Python on hardware news. Don't forget, go to Adafruit Daily, delivered to your inbox every single week. And special thanks to Anne, who does an amazing job. And then Anne sent a hug report. We do that for our weekly all company meeting to Dan, who always proofreads. Thank you, Dan. All right, next up, some open source hardware news, Ladyada. Happy anniversary, SparkFun. We saw this go by on the socials. SparkFun's 20 years old.
wow.
And they posted up this thing, take a walk down memory lane and pick what your favorite SparkFun memory is. And I saw this on it was like either Instagram or Twitter, and I couldn't I couldn't read it in time as the things were going by. And so I downloaded the video and I'm just like, oh, this actually is like now I'm remembering all this stuff because when I first heard about SparkFun, it was when I was writing about them at Make. I used to do a like Friday roundup of new hardware from SparkFun. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I remember this, I remember this, I remember this. And some of the stuff I didn't know. So what I have is the video, and what I can do is step through it here, and we can look at it together. So 2002, Nate started SparkFun, open source company. It was important for them to be open source. I remember hanging out with Nate at Peter Luger's, and we said, hey, if you do open source, that'll be SparkFun and
Yeah.
Adafruit. And I think we can convince others to do it too. And I said, it's kind of lonely because we were one of the few doing it. And then SparkFun did, and was like, okay, this is pretty good. 2003, Nate launches the first SparkFun site. The third order is made from France. Nate graduates from college. First employee was Pete Doctor. For folks who have been in this world for a long time, there was a series called Ask Pete. It was really good. You can still check it on YouTube. Phone hack. This was the Porter Rotary. I remember writing about this at Make, and I had one.
Yeah, the original thing that SparkFun was really good at is they had very early cellular modules. You couldn't get them anywhere else. They were one of the only sites on the internet you could buy
Yeah.
cellular modules and like modems and other just like weird electronic parts.
Yeah, 2007.
At the time, they were weird.
SparkFun website is hacked. SparkFun.com is redirected to a soccer site. I don't remember that. It must have happened
Remember
very
that.
fast. SparkFun site got a facelift. Then they did then it's interesting what they put in their like history stuff. So they put frenemies in one of them, and that's when SparkFun got a cease and desist from Spark International. It was because of the name, and they did some type of coexistence agreement because of the naming of SparkFun, and Spark was computer stuff. So I think they had agreed they wouldn't make like mainframe computers.
Yeah.
They hit 100,000 orders. They did their first AVC. They did their first free day. The free day stuff is interesting because you can kind of read on like what happened, because ultimately they said we can't do this. And you could see like what happened. And then the fourth free day, turns out they couldn't do it because it was a lottery. Because if you bought something, it was kind of like entering the lottery. So you can kind of see these things. And then the other thing they mentioned, and I remember this one, was U.S. Customs seized all these SparkFun multimeters because they were the same color as Fluke multimeters. So it was yellow and dark gray. So they ended up, I think, donating them to schools. They made, they just said, okay, fine, we won't sell them, we'll donate them. And then you could just see the rest of the history. Nate stepped down from being CEO. Glenn became the CEO. Quick, that's the standard that they came up with. We use stemmas based on that.
Yeah.
And then Seed has Grove. And then you could just see the rest of the latest. They have micromods. They have a payphone project. The L-band released. And then this is where they're at right now. So happy 20th anniversary, SparkFun.
Well, it's nice to see like, they're getting back into doing like some cool funky hardware like RTK and L-band.
Yeah.
That their stuff has always been like, GPSs, cellular stuff, robotics. Like this is their expertise.
Yeah, they were kind of like the older sibling that kind of was there before us. And I think that one of the things too, if you look where the two companies were and where they're at now, Adafruit and SparkFun are the top two contributors to certified open source hardware, and
Yeah.
then there's that big long tail of everyone else, and they have feather boards and they do stuff with Python. So it's neat. Cool company, open source,
Red.
red. That's the company color.
Yes.
So check it out. Speaking of open source, Ladyada, we have a ton of guides.
Yeah, a lot of guys this week.
Yeah, we do. Let me crank up the Adafruit learning system. What is on the big board this week, Ladyada?
Okay. Oh, you got a bunch. Okay, so Eva
Yeah,
wrote
that was from last week.
So yeah, Eva wrote a couple guides for using Whippersnapper. Thank you. One is how to use the built-in battery monitors on featherboards, where you can actually use an external Stomach UT battery monitor, which is handy because you want to have a wireless project to tell you what the power is. Carter wrote a great guide called "Dude, Where's My COM Port?" This comes up a lot because a lot of folks start out with ESP32 and Arduino Uno boards, and they graduate to native USB boards. And I see your one. No, it's fine. No, go back. That's fine. I didn't understand something.
Okay.
They get confused because their COM port disappears and reappears, and it's called something else. And like, what is it? And why is it bootloader? Sometimes it's not. So Carter wrote a really good guide. Carter is like really good at writing guides that explain really basic stuff, which is extremely hard. So I want to send this to people when they're like, I don't understand why my COM port's disappearing and reappearing, especially they upload code that crashes their firmware and then the USB port goes away, and a lot of people are like, it's bricked. And I'm like, it's not bricked. They're like, it's bricked. And they kind of have a little bit of a freak out. And it's like, hey, it's all good. You just have to like press reset, enter the bootloader, and you can get back and then, load code that works like Blink. You'll get your COM port back.
Okay, what else?
Erin did two cool guides this week. One is Moana Glowing Heart of Tefiti necklace. This is from the movie Moana, using the green LED nudes that are great for cosplay. They're just perfect for making, shaped lights without having to do masking or like using neopixels. And there's no code required. It's just like a swirl of this nude soldered right into our switched battery coin holder. And for Valentine's Day,
Yeah. Oops.
we've got the novelty cufflinks.
Yeah.
These look so cute. These are very fashionable, and you got some French cuffs.
CircuitPython powered.
They're CircuitPython powered, and you can use
Python cufflinks.
Python cufflinks are cool.
2023.
You can use the 5x5 NeoPixel BFF to make, these are themed for Valentine's Day, but you can have them scrolling text or animate any 5x5 colorful display. And running CircuitPython, I think she's using the RP2040 and a QPy with a BFF on the back. Melissa updated the guide for the 0.96 inch TFT. These mini TFTs got revised, and the initialization code is slightly different. And so the guide has been updated to now show you which one you have and how to do the update. Eva did another guide on using piezo buzzers with the Whippersnapper. We have support for PWM outputs. You can have beeps and boops and tones. And then Liz did a project with CircuitPython and the new reverse mount Feather ESP32s, which have a TFT and then buttons. And to make a little Octoprint controller, she has Octoprint running in another room, and then maybe you want to pause or cancel or get the state of the heater or preheat. You can now do that with this handy little remote control box that has the display and buttons for super easy interfacing and button pressing. And then finally, a lot of guys this week. Pedro did this LED rocket lamp, which is also a white noise generator.
Yeah, we're gonna do the video for this as well. Turns out kids really need like white noise generators.
Yeah,
Just
it helps them go to sleep.
Turns out they do.
Adults too.
Yeah, everybody
I
does.
like to listen to stuff when they go to sleep. Okay, so you want to watch some of these videos? And
Yeah,
then...
we're gonna do the boxing video because that was a blog post.
Okay.
It wasn't a learn guide; it was a blog post. So we're gonna watch that, and then we're gonna do some factory footage.
Okay.
some made in New York. Advanced manufacturing, New York City. Factory footage. Next up, some 3D printing. We're going to do the noise generating light lamp. Looks like a rocket. And then we're going to go right into a speed up and we'll see you on the other side.
You can build a sci-fi inspired rocket lamp with electronics from Adafruit and CircuitPython. This features NeoPixel LEDs and a speaker to create a rocket-themed white noise generator. At the base, it's got an LED toggle switch for powering on the device. A Stemma QT rotary encoder features 2 modes for adjusting the brightness of the LEDs and the volume of the sound effects. We think it's a great project for young makers to inspire them while they're awake and help soothe them to sleep. It features a mini fan, speaker, NeoPixels, LED toggle switch, and a Stemma QT rotary encoder. This USB cable features magnetic tips and provides the lamp with 5 volts of USB power. Powered by the Adafruit Feather RP2040 and the PropMaker Featherwing, these 2 dev boards are the perfect match for making advanced props with LEDs and sound effects. The code is written in Adafruit CircuitPython and uses the MP3 library to play back audio files. The Stemma QT rotary encoder features a button and NeoPixel LED to switch between modes for controlling the brightness and volume. Be sure to check out the guide on the Adafruit Learning System for a step-by-step tutorial. With CircuitPython, your dev board shows up as a USB flash drive, allowing you to simply drag and drop files for easy file swapping. You can go to circuitpython.org and search to find out if your dev board is supported. Once you've found your dev board, click the download button to get the most recent version. We think CircuitPython makes developing hardware projects fun and easy for both beginners and experienced engineers. Get the parts to build your own rocket lamp by checking out the links in the description. Download the free CAD files and 3D print the parts in your favorite filaments. We'll start by soldering the various cables and components to the PropMaker Featherwing. A 3D printed bracket snap fits over the speaker and gets secured to the PropMaker Featherwing. The mini fan gets sandwiched in between 2 brackets with mounting tabs for securing the feather. Socket headers allow the 2 boards to press fit together to create a layered stack of components. 2 NeoPixel rings are wired together and press fit into a circular bracket. The component stack is then secured to the NeoPixel mount with machine screws to create the core of the rocket. The body of the rocket is then fitted over the core and secured to the outer tabs. All of the cables are routed through an exit hole on the side of the rocket. A DIY ribbon cable allows the dev board's USB port to be accessible in the control box. The cables are press fitted into a wiring channel built into the rocket's umbilical that gets secured to the side of the rocket. To hide the wires, a separate cover is press fitted over the umbilical stand. Cables can then be routed through the top of the control box with the umbilical stand secured with machine screws. The rotary encoder is soldered to the Stemma QT breakout board and gets panel mounted to the top of the control box. A JST cable is wired up to a pair of quick connects that are clipped onto the toggle switch's terminals. The LED toggle switch can then be panel mounted and plugs into the corresponding JST cable. The USB ribbon cable press fits into the notch near the bottom of the control box. Optionally, a beefy LiPo battery fits inside the enclosure to make this project portable. The bottom cover snap fits under the control box to keep everything intact. Colored tissue paper can be used to create a flame by layering together cutout shapes to form the rocket's exhaust. The paper flames are attached near the blades of the minifan with double-sided sticky tape. Lastly, the top of the rocket snap fits over the booster. We hope this inspires you to use CircuitPython and parts from Adafruit to create your own props with lights and sounds.
All right, tune in, everyone, safe for the best and longest running 3D printed show in the world, 3D Hangouts. Before we go on to INMPI, a little bit of a reminder: code is 2BFFs. It will be active. This code 10% off until I turn it off, or the child wakes me up and I fall asleep early. Then I get up. I'm like, oh my god, I forgot to turn off the code. So either way, probably use it or lose it before midnight tonight. And don't forget, you get all the free stuff when you load up your cart.
Meep, meep.
Okay, Ladyada, it is time for INMPI.
Yay.
This week's INMPI brought to you by DigiKey and Adafruit is in play. Ladyada, what is the INMPI this week?
I'm glad you asked. This week's INPI, like I said, is from In Play. We've not featured them before. I'm really excited. I always like to have a new company. I feel like we do a lot of, the ST NXP microchip. Sensorion In Play. They make Bluetooth chips. And their latest product is the N100. The N100 Nano Beacon is a Bluetooth chip, and it's kind of a totally different take on Bluetooth development. We've covered and we stock a lot of Bluetooth chips here at Adafruit. NRF series, there's also the TI series. Dialog also has Bluetooth chipsets. What's interesting about this Nano Beacon is it's a device that's only meant to do advertisement, so it doesn't connect to as a client or peripheral to your smartphone or your computer. All it does is bleep out information like a little beacon. It sort of sends like data out. So it's a lot cheaper because it only has to transmit. It's also a lot less power because it doesn't do any receiving. It only does transmission. But what's really neat about it is it has no firmware, no onboard flash that's reprogrammed. Instead, it has like these capabilities that you can program using the built-in EEPROM that's one-time programmable. And they've got, it's Bluetooth 5, it's 2.4 gigahertz. There's no coding, no programming. It's a powerful chip. It's got like, I think, +8 or +4 dB. It can run on, coin cell batteries up to from 1.5 to 3 volts. It does have SRAM, and it does have this OTP memory. You can get it in 2 packages. It seems like it's exclusively only available at DigiKey, which is great because we're doing INPI for DigiKey. You can get it as a DFN or a QFN. The DFN, same core, same memory, just has fewer pins, and it's like a teeny bit less expensive. So inside, there's the finite state machine that kind of runs the thing. There is, a firmware that does Bluetooth. It's just not accessible really to the user. Instead, there's peripherals. There's the sensor ADC, UART, one wire, and I2C input. There's also GPIO, of course. There's the eFuse that controls like what it does, and then there's some memory, and there's timers and stuff, and then output. It just sends Bluetooth based on what the OTP memory has been programmed to do, like what ADCs or I2C commands it should be running every n milliseconds, and then what data to send out. There's a lot of specs. I'm not going to go into them, but basically it's peripherals connected to a Bluetooth output. There's two versions. The QFN version has 2 crystal options, 26 megahertz, which you absolutely need for the Bluetooth signal, but for low power, like intermediate data logging, there's also a 32 kilohertz RTC crystal. The ADC is one of the peripherals. There's 4 channels. It also has the ability to read half of the VBAT, which is handy. So you can, against a reference, you can tell what the VCC voltage is. And there's also a built-in temperature sensor. I2C is kind of neat. We'll show later. You can actually have it be a I2C controller. It can connect to a peripheral. So there's an example of connecting it to an SHT40 temperature humidity sensor. So if you're doing a project where it's just like read data from an I2C sensor and then bleep it out over Bluetooth to like a sensor collection central device, this will work great. And again, you don't have to learn any SDK. There's also plus PWM detection and pulse train. Again, because there's no reception, there's no output. You can't use this to turn on or off an LED. It can only read data, I2C, whatever, digital IO in, and then send it out to Bluetooth. There's also, it seems like there's a couple like trigger options, like if certain, the data is above or below something, or the battery is low, send a report. If there is a GPIO toggle, send a report. So there's a couple simple triggers that you can do, actions based on the inputs. Well, I wanted to note that there's on-chip matching, so it's really nice. Is you literally just like stick an antenna on the end, very low cost. Maybe you use one capacitor as a blocking cap, but otherwise it's very simple, low cost bill of materials. Here is the reference schematic for the QFN 18, which has a bunch of pins. You can see there's the crystal. There is there's the 26 megahertz crystal on the top left. If you want to use a more precision 32 kilohertz RTC crystal, there you can attach that. Your bill of material goes up, but it's more precise. Just a connector antenna. There's a couple passes, but really like nothing else. If you see this, it's like you can pretty much connect it directly to the battery, right? It has this built-in LDO. You don't even need a power regulator separately. The DFN 8 is even the DFN 8 is even simpler because you don't have the RTC crystal. Just has like 2 GPIO, and you can use it to program it and then use it for I2C and analog. And here's the good news, because it's so simple, right? You're wondering like, wow, like it has no flash, it has no outputs, it can't receive data. What's the goal here? It's like, well, it's really, really, really cheap. Like 40 cents cheap, which is ridiculously cheap for a configurable Bluetooth transmission device that's really well designed. It has all these peripherals built in, especially like an ADC and I2C controller, which would make it really great for something like these like sensor beacons, right? These sensor tiles, little things that they just send a beep with a random number or their identifier or the temperature every n seconds. And, they might get destroyed. They might be disposable. They just need to be very low cost. Your whole bill of materials can easily be $1. I would recommend getting the dev kit, which is what I got. So the dev board comes with a little programmer. Good news, the programmer is just a CH340. It's just your FTDI type of programming thing. So you can really use any. If you have one handy, you could use that for bootloading. The board above, you just need a 2.4 gigahertz antenna. For your final design, of course, use a trace antenna or a chip antenna, but just for development, they have an SMA connector. There's a CR 12 millimeter coin cell battery on the back. There's a reset button, and then you can kind of use this just for development. There's a little jumper for current measurement and for the enable pin. So it's like a nice little dev board, and you get 3 of them because again, it's one-time programmable. Once you've decided what it's going to do, you burn it into Flash and you can't change it. The firmware can be configured, sorry, the firmware, the EEPROM can be configured with the NanoBeacon tool. It's available for Windows, Linux, and Mac, which is nice. It's written in PyQt. You can even see the source code in the download because they just kind of give you the entire package. This is the tool. It's pretty simple. You just select the UART, you connect. So I just did this in like 30 seconds. And then I followed the tutorials to set the advertising data to send the VCC, which is like basically the battery voltage, and the temperature. And then while you're doing your development, you obviously want to like experiment and try out different things. So you run it out of RAM. So you click run in RAM, it'll upload the code and it doesn't burn it into the EEPROM. You run it in RAM until you get your thing working because you're going to take a lot of iterations, especially if you're working with like I2C.
Clever idea.
Yeah, it's very clever. And then once you're done, then you burn into EEPROM and then it's like permanent. The nice thing about EEPROM is it's not going to get like erased by accident, but you know, again, you can't fix it after the fact. And then I just used the NRF Connect on Android phone, connected, and you can see the raw data has, I mean, it's not decoded here, but the raw data was changing as the temperature was changing. You can also set what you want it to, like random numbers or different analog voltages or digital voltages. So you can look through the app and see like all the different things that you can change with it. You can also change, I don't think you can change the manufacturing name, but you can change the payload that's advertised, and it's like 20 bytes or so. And then another cool thing I noticed is there's a lot of great tutorials that Mohammed Afane wrote, and I believe they also have a Bluetooth newsletter that I subscribe to, which is really good. So this is like novel bits. And so they wrote a bunch of great tutorials on using this. There's also an excellent collection of YouTube videos, including, you know, one that features the Adafruit SHT40, but like all the things like, you know, how to use it with single wire, use it with GPIO, capacitive touch, etc. All the different inputs that you might want to connect to use to control this little beacon device.
What the what? I'm not used to seeing 5-digit in stock numbers.
Yes.
54,000 of them?
Well, they're 40 cents a piece. So
I'm just not used to seeing any stock number of greater
you
than
can buy
0.
them all for like 20K. You can drive them around. So yeah, they have this is the QFN version, which also the DFN version also has like about 50K in stock.
This is a cool tip. You were talking about this today, and you're like, I really like this. This is really interesting to me.
It's quite interesting because at first I was like, oh my god, it's EEPROM, but because you can run out of RAM, I was like, oh okay, it's not so bad. Like I thought like, wow, you really just had to
I
guess.
like your little RAMs like scratch to like get ready,
Try it out. So I think this is neat. You know, if you don't want to learn an SDK, you don't want to muck around with Zephyr or Matter or whatever, you just want to send, like, you know, if you just have a temperature humidity sensor and you're sending that data, you don't need a display, you don't need LEDs.
This is it.
It just runs on a coin cell. Yeah, it can show off the dev kit. So yeah, this is just the dev board. It's very simple, but you know, I think it's a very interesting idea, especially since you've seen, you know, AirTags, which basically, I mean, other than the beeping part of the AirTag, this is just, you know, it just sends out the signal. Normally these sort of tiles are a couple bucks a piece, but a chip like this would reduce the cost significantly. And because it's only transmitting and it's minimal, there's no core that's really running. It's just this like finite state machine, basically. The power is very, very low.
And that's on MPI.
On MPI.
All right, we're gonna just jump right into new products.
Yes. New.
Okay, lots of updates to some old favorites.
Lots of updates. Revisions. Product 292, a classic. This is our I2C and SPI LCD backpack. It got a huge update. I was going to update this to add STEM and QT, and then I was like, while I'm here, let's kind of fix all the stuff that I wanted to update with it. So this is a backpack you solder onto the back of your 16x2 or 20x4 character LCD with a backlight, and it's just a very simple but very effective I2C or SPI, you know, latched. It's a 595 chip. controller. It basically means you just need 6 GPIO to control LCD. You only need 2, or in the case of SPI, 3 of them. And it just works very well. We have library code in Arduino and in CircuitPython, and this board's been around for so long that people have been using it, and there's lots of projects. So the new version is mechanically the same size, right? Like the holes are in the same place. Actually, I added another mounting hole because I made the parts a little smaller. But it adds, okay, so go over here. It's 2 Semi QT ports in the bottom and the right, because I wanted to keep the terminal blocks in the same location. There's a small on LED that'll let you know when it's powered. The thing that I like the most is that I've updated it to have a little boost converter. It now has a switch cap converter that will take the input and give you 5 volts, which means that you can run this off of 3-volt power. The previous version was 5 volts only. LCDs tend to need 5 volts for power and logic. Sometimes you can run them on 3, but if you want the backlight to be nice and bright, you want 5 volts. So this will boost the voltage from 3 to 5 for you. So you can use it with your QT Py or your RP2040. I also updated the contrast potentiometer to be a lot nicer. The previous one was kind of this SMT potentiometer, which they work and they're very reliable, but I wanted one that was easier to turn with a simple screwdriver. Other than that, it's the same design, and so you can use all the code that we've got. It's STEMMA QTFI, just easier to use, overall better.
Next up.
Another version that was STEMMA QTFI'd and updated. This is the bicolor LED matrix. You see 3 colors here because there's red and green, and you combine them to make yellow. So this backpack was updated. It's got the nice new silkscreen fonts from Penguin, and it's got STEMMA QT as well. So you can see in the little animation, it's plugged into a QT Py, which we use for our demos. No soldering required. I mean, you have to solder the screen on, but once that's done, there's no breadboarding required. And eventually we'll probably stock a version that is pre-soldered. It features the, it's kind of fudged out here a little bit, but it's the Holtec HT16K33, which I really like. It can drive the full 16x8 grid of LEDs because there's 2 8x8 grids, one for red and one for green, and you can change the I2C address on the back with those jumpers.
Next up.
Next up, another revision. This is the ESP32S3 Feather. We've updated the silk screen, with Penguin, so it looks a little nicer. The big update is the onboard battery monitor, the LC709203. Number one, it's no longer made. It got discontinued since the board was designed. It can't really get any more LC709203s. So this has been updated to use the Max 17048, which is really a very good, same ultra low power, same battery monitor, can give you percentage charge, doesn't require a inline resistor. Overall, a wonderful little battery monitor. There's also an onboard battery charger. The second thing is the buttons are, I think, easier to press. I made them these nice large oval buttons, which we covered on the Great Search. Other than the fact that the battery monitor changed, the pinout's the same, the chip is the same, amount of flash, the amount of RAM, everything else is identical. We just swapped out one component for the other.
Next up.
Okay, we've got from Raspberry Pi shipments of more camera module 3. These are really nice, I think with 12 megapixel cameras. We've stocked the wide angle normal, and this is the wide and narrow no IR noir, which is why it's kind of gothy and black. It has no IR cut filter. And what that means is that they're great for use with outdoor nighttime photography, because if you can flood the area with IR light, humans and animals don't detect IR light, but this camera will pick it up, and so you'll get that night vision effect. You can use it with the Pi Zero using a adapter cable. Otherwise, it just works exactly like other Raspberry Pi cameras. I will say that the camera is thicker than the previous versions of this camera. You can kind of see it on this image. It's a little chunkier. So, our camera case doesn't fit it because this is significantly bigger. And it comes in two versions. It's 75-degree and 120-degree wide. So pick which one. And we'll also have, of course, the no IR version.
Okay. They also have a video. I was going to play. It's only like 40 seconds of video shot with a pie camera.
Okay. Next up, we've got two BFFs. Number one BFF is the micro SD BFF, which you can solder onto the back, but for our demo, we did solder it to the little header so you can plug it in. Basically, it's a micro SD card connected over the SPI pins. So great for storing audio files or fonts or images, or you can data log to it. So if you want to make a little miniature data logger, especially our boards that have a STEM QT port, great for sensor data logging. Micro SD cards you can then plug into your computer. And here it is, just soldered as a little sandwich. Yeah. Very cute.
All right, and the star of the show tonight, besides you, Ladyada, our team, our staff, our community, our customers, and everyone who makes this thing go is
another BFF. This is the NeoKey BFF. So if you want to make the smallest keyboard, it's just one button, but connect it to USB. This NeoKey BFF is a little add-on for all of our QT Py boards that adds a single MX compatible switch socket with a reverse mount NeoPixel. This is what it looks like on the back, and then that's what it looks like on the front. So you plug in a key switch, which does not come with, because we sell like the individual keys. We have linear and clicky. You pick which one you want, and then you plug it in. And then you had a keycap. Again, you pick the keycap. Maybe I'll see if I can find the demo here. I'll show it off. You plug it in, and then you write the code to whatever you want to do when the key is pressed. You can have it send a key switch or like a play pause. So this is just it plugged into little mini headers just to make it removable. You can plug any QT Py. This one I think is the RP2040, which is just our kind of go-to. You can solder it closer together, but it's not like if you want to have it socketed, this is kind of as small as it gets. And then you can plug this into USB-C. And then this is the key. So like I said, you can plug in any MX compatible key switch. In this case, I think it's a linear black. And then you put in your favorite keycap. And then there's an RGB NeoPixel underneath, and that will glow through as long, if you have particularly a translucent keycap, like you can see on the animated GIF, you can see it glowing through. Or you can just not use a NeoPixel, or if you do have a NeoPixel and it's not translucent, it'll just glow around the key.
And that is new products.
New.
Okay, cool. Don't forget the code is 2BFFs. We are going to do top secret, then we'll roll into the questions. I've been saving them up, squirreling them away.
Yes.
And we'll get to those. Let's do some top secret, Lady. All right, this top secret has a trailer. All aboard, it's the Metro M7.
We've got the new silk screen done, thanks to Paint Your Dragon, who rocked out. Made a beautiful silk screen for this purple board. It's purple because the number 7 line here in New York is purple, so I thought that would be a nice homage.
Yeah.
And this is the RT1011 board, which comes with Airlift ESP32, and I like how there's the stops, it tells you what you're gonna get. with this board. And with the silkscreen done, the PCBs were ordered. So we will soon have this board. This is a little rendering that kind of helps you visualize where all the components go. It's jam packed with goodies, and this 500 megahertz super fast Metro board's coming soon.
All right. That's top secret. Okay, cool. We're gonna roll right into questions, Lydia. I've got some ready to go. And
Okay.
do it. Does Adafruit plan on making I Spy Featherwing? In the meantime, check out, and there's a GitHub link. You can check that in Discord. Adafruit can make this if they want to, but do you have any?
We do have a design, but I wanted to finish all the TFTs first. We actually are close to getting the TFTs done.
Okay.
I think we have one more to go.
Do we have any tutorials on how to make a LoRa radio?
Lots. There's a lot of LoRa radio tutorials. Check out the Learn System. Just type in LoRa,
Yeah.
and you'll get all sorts of projects from LoRaWAN to just
Okay.
plain LoRa.
Someone had a question about this. Can you control the brightness? Yes, you can.
Well, you can turn it on or off, but you can't. You can control the
think-
contrast,
Yeah, sorry.
but
Yeah,
not
you can control. Oh, sorry. The contrast you can, not the brightness.
the brightness. You can. This is the trade off. Well, this was actually. So here's the thing. This was designed back before there were
Right.
really LED backlights. It was EL backlights, and so you couldn't dim them anyways.
Yeah.
And so
I meant contrast.
it's okay. So we do have backpacks that do control the brightness and can do RGB, but that's a different product, which will also, by the way, be getting redesigned because the chip that is used in it is no longer
Are
available.
there any great GPS modules for smartwatches, small and simple pins?
Yeah, I think our we have the PA 1100, I think is the part number. It's a little I2C GPS. It'll work quite well. It's the teeniest GPS we get.
Okay. How would you decide between ESP32S2 with 2 megabytes of PS RAM, 4 megabytes flash versus no PS RAM, 8 megabytes flash?
It just depends on whether you need a lot of firmware space or you need a lot of RAM space. It's a trade-off. They don't make a version that does both, so you have to kind of. That's why I was like, well, it's kind of cool. Like if you just have a lot of firmware space you need for some project, maybe like onboard store, because you can store files on it. There is some use cases for it.
All right. Can the QT Py do beat detection?
I think the RP2040 probably could. It's Cortex M0. And I think the ESP32 could do also because it's a pretty fast processor. You'll need to find code examples to do it, but it can definitely do an FFT.
Does Adafruit sell EVA 8 millimeter, 8M?
I don't know
Maybe
what
we
that
know what
is.
that is. What is EVA? Maybe is that like phone or? Yeah. Okay. Question feedback. Thoughts on Adafruit IN100 just featured?
I think it's a really cool chip. I don't know what exactly I would do with it yet, but it could be like it can have a little stomach QT port. But I just got the dev port, so I'm still. I played with it a lot today and yesterday, but well, I'll check it out. So no promises.
Adafruit, glad you've been able to return to live shows. Parenthood and chip shortage aside, is there any other threats affecting production on the horizon? Wish you the best. So, over the last 3 years, it's been really helpful to be paranoid about just about anything. So when we see political instability or some type of climate disaster, absolutely, there's something that can disrupt production anytime. There is really cold weather on Saturday here in New York. There is a possible UPS strike. There's all sorts of things. There was a Chinese spy balloon or something that's causing tensions between nations. Everything can affect everything. So I think the answer is I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be something. So all we can do is be robust and adapt, and we're doing it. So you probably saw the revisions that we've been doing. We diversified our supply chain. We got off things like certain chips that we couldn't get for a long time. It also put us in a better position to negotiate later. So yeah, there's so many things that could happen, but I feel like our strategy of having like backups of backups, 2 of something isn't enough anymore. Get 3.
Yeah.
And just be ready and robust and adaptable because I don't know what it's going to be. Bird flu, who knows what's going to be next week. But I think we learned a lot over the last 3 years of what can happen and then what you can do. Even if you don't know what's going to happen, something like the following might happen, like a shutdown of some major services. So how do you route around that? Okay.
Yes.
I think that is it.
Okay.
Them's the questions. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, everybody.
Thank you.
We very much appreciate it. Thanks for coming by and spending time with us. We'll be doing this completely this weekend. We're, of course, back every single week doing Ask an Engineer. We'll be hosting Show and Tell next week unless some type of disaster hits. But that's okay.
Yes.
We'll figure it out and we'll get through it together. If
Wild
if
emus,
we lasted this long,
bears.
so I want to say special thanks to everyone out there who's supporting the company, all of our team members, and more. You help this whole thing go. We very much appreciate it. This has been an Adafruit production. Here is your moment of Zener.
Thanks, everybody.